Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
What's going on, everybody? This is Critical Failure. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. This week, we're going to wrap up our series on the Dreamcast. I didn't really set out to do a series on the Dreamcast, but once I scratched the surface, so much came out that it just kept coming. Especially last week, we read that article that basically just a Reddit post that somebody wrote about the failure the end of the Dreamcast, and it really brought everybody out of the woodwork. We got Hemrock, we've got Mecha Menace, we've got Desm, we got Alex Swingle. So much to go over, and this had the biggest reaction of any episode of TCR ever in over a decade. I've never had this much feedback to read. So what I thought we'd do, over on battleofthebits.org, they are collecting entries for Summer Chip 10. So I went and got some of the entries for Summer Chip 10, and we would just do a Dreamcast response special. Jam to some of the Summer Chip entries and respond to some of the feedback from last week. So let's kick things off. This is a really short track that was submitted, created with I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what tool they used, but it's a Commodore 64 chip sort of tool. So like one of the SID trackers. It's short, but I think it's really good. Hang on a second, I want to make sure that I get this name right. Charlotte is the name of the artist, and the name of the song is Razoric Eats a Sardine and Immediately Dies Ultra Hardcore Minecraft No Scope .nsf.mp3. It's a good track, it's 2 minutes long, and it's free. Go get yourself a copy. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. I can detect tempo changes in that song that are very difficult to pull off with a tracker. It leads me to believe that maybe it was done with hardware? I don't know. But clearly somebody who can actually play versus somebody who's poking at a sequencer like I have for so many years. Heck of a track. My goodness. And what kills me is that's not a widely listened to track either. There's a lot of entries for Summer Chip 10, and some of these have racked up the listens. That one's been listened to maybe 21 times or so. Well below the average. Well below the average. All right, so let's get things started. First thing I want to read is the latest from our good buddy Hemrock, who had quite a response for us. Let's dig in. All right. Hello, CF. Thank you as usual for another episode of TCR. It was a good one. I hope you and the family are staying safe and doing well. We are, man. Thank you. You asked your audience about thoughts on the year 1999, especially in regards to the Dreamcast. 1999, for me, was during a period of time I call my golden years, specifically 1997 to the summer 2000. It was that sweet spot where I was old enough to appreciate stuff like music, movies, video games, etc., but I was young enough not to have any real responsibilities. I also had some great friends that lived very close by. We had a ton of fun playing I had a ton of fun playing pickup sports, video games, collecting sports cards, and eating at the local burger joint. It was also the time I first started listening to the radio. Bands like Third Eye Blind, Goo Goo Dolls, Everclear, Sugar Ray were prominent. I'm sure you were vomiting inside CF and your punkish ways. Maybe you can forgive me. I did have some MXPX CDs during that time, so did I. Yeah. In any case, 1999 was awesome. By then, I certainly had a PlayStation, and I think that my family also had an N64 around that year. So when the Dreamcast came out, I had no aspiration of acquiring one. See, I didn't even know anyone who had a Dreamcast, and my closest interaction with the console was viewing commercials on TV and a faint memory of seeing a demo stand at either a Funko-Land or a GameStop. Plus, I was really digging PC games during that era, which was pulling me away from consoles. Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri came out that year, and so did Civilization Call to Power. I was also playing Civ 2 Gold Edition and Empires 2, so I completely missed out on the Dreamcast during its heyday. I didn't get one until 2004. All right, quick break from the email to respond to that. That is an excellent point that I really didn't think of until now. Or maybe I did. I don't know. PC gaming was in a really good spot at that time. This was like the very, very end of the really big box PC games. And you guys have heard me complain about this on the air many, many times. I acquired right around that time. I acquired a huge, beautiful, gorgeous collection of big box PC games that my mother threw out when I was 17. Right around that time. Yeah, so that's one of the things I was doing quite a bit at that time as well. All right, let's get back to the email. In the article you read on air about the demise of the article you read on air about the demise of the Dreamcast was an interesting one. One point the author says is that the Saturn was a failure. While this may be true in North America, the Saturn was a popular system in Japan. And like you pointed out, people in the U.S. had not forgotten about Sega in the late 90s. Of course not. Of course not. You also commented on Chex cereal. When was the last time you had it? I remember liking it as a kid, but I don't think I've consumed it as a standalone cereal in over 15 years. You know what, Hemrock? That's one of those things that I put aside in my as I got older, but then once I had children, I revisited it. Oh yeah. That's the beauty of fatherhood. You get to recapture a little bit of that innocence that is lost. You feel like is lost when you start to get older. But he goes on. This is where it gets good. I have to disagree with you in regards to a hypothetical Shining Force 4 and Phantasy Star 5 for the Dreamcast. You said those are games which I think we've missed out on because the Dreamcast failed. Those are games that would not have come out early in the life cycle. Did you know that Phantasy Star 2 was released in March of 1990 in North America? That is quite early in the Genesis lifespan, and over a year before the first Sonic the Hedgehog game. Sega was certainly capable of producing a good RPG early in a console's life. Sega should have known years in advance that Sony would launch the PS2. They should have also known that they would have a short window of capable of producing a good RPG early in the console's life. Sega should have known. Wait, I read that entirely wrong. I started reading the same line again. You know what we're going to do? We're going to take a quick break, and I am going to increase the font size, and we're going to try that one more time, dropping down. Okay, lifespan. They should have known. They should have also known that they had a short window of time where the Dreamcast would be out before the Sony's second console. They really needed to have hit the ground running with all four tires on the dirt and four-wheel drive. I don't see why they couldn't have produced a single RPG at the system launch. That's right, there was a grand total of 0 RPGs at launch. I figured they could have used a similar game engine to the one they used with Phantasy Star Online, but that must have been in development at the time. Plus, the Dreamcast also had other mediocre to great RPGs that were released, such as Skies of Arcadia, Grandia 2, Evolution, both 1 and 2, Record of Lodoss War, and Silver. The possibility was there for early RPGs, just for whatever reason it was not a priority. Maybe Bernie Stolar had something to do with that. All right, let's respond to this paragraph here. I agree with your summarization that I think it was the influence of Bernie Stolar. We know that he was not a fan of the RPG genre. I have to look this up to back this up. I know we have plenty of Sega people who listen to this, so you feel free to correct me. But he blocked RPGs from being developed on the Saturn, right? So even though he kind of eased up on that at some point, clearly he didn't think those were what was going to win the console war. So, yeah, I guess it was Bernie Stolar. Also, I am aware that Dreamcast had some good RPGs. I'm not saying it was devoid of RPGs. Grandia 2 in particular is one that sticks out to me. But here's one thing that you said. You talked about it having 0 RPGs at launch. Don't a lot of systems have 0 RPGs at launch? In fact, I would go as far as to say, don't most systems have 0 RPGs at launch? I know the PS2 didn't have any. At least I don't think so. But we'll get back to that later. I see the point that you're making. But we'll see. Well, let's read on, because what you're talking about here is the strength of the Dreamcast launch library. That's what you're talking about, right? And I believe there is someone else who addresses that later on in the show, where we actually have all of the launch titles to compare between the Dreamcast and the PS2. So we're going to revisit this bullet point later. Yeah, interesting thought though. Would an RPG at launch have saved the Dreamcast? I think the Dreamcast is a system that clearly already did the job of hooking a dedicated fan base, right? The people who did play the Dreamcast played it for years and years and years, right? They just had to expand that blanket. I don't know. Now I'm just analyzing. It's just speculation, just conjecture, whatever. I don't really know. But let's get back to the email, because there's some more good stuff here. Hemrock, as you know, has been going through his NES collection, playing them all one at a time. And in each email, he's been including a block on that. So let's see what he says. So I played the next round of NES games, and here are my thoughts. Al Unser Jr. Turbo Racing. Are you looking for some fun-loving arcade racing action? Well, you should probably get yourself a copy of RC Pro-Am. But if you're looking for more realization and more frustration, then pick up good old Al Jr.'s Racing. It isn't horrible. It's got good graphics for the time, and some of the music is pretty good. However, the word fun isn't the first word that comes to mind. I could see my younger self getting into it if I knew, if it weren't one of the few games I owned. But now I'd rather use my precious time playing something else. I think this one will hit the eBay bucket. Barely 2 out of 5 stars. Abadox. Take Gradius and add Guts and Gore, and you've got Abadox. I'm a little surprised that a company like Milton Bradley would publish this. I would not advise it for young children. However, that said, this is a solid shmup. I think it was Norm, the gaming historian, who first alerted me to this gem. 4 out of 5 stars. I've not heard of that one. I know the name, because I've seen it in lists of NES games, but I don't think I've actually sat down and played it. I'll have to check that out. But there's more. Archon. It's more of an interactive version of chess with a medieval theme. The board pieces actually get to duke it out in a run-and-gun type format. I recommend this one for you, CF. You can buy an updated version on Steam for $10. Unfortunately, the game never goes on sale. It's been on my Steam wishlist for the past 5 years. At any case, I give you the NES version 4 out of 5 stars. Very cool. 720 was released on the Game Boy Color. Maybe that was the version of the game you're referring to in the last episode. Maybe. But I have a hankering to play 720 again, since we've talked about it. Speaking of backing things up, it's unlikely... Excuse me. Backed up your archive.org page yet? No, I haven't. But you know what? I've been keeping a to-do list this past week, and it's actually been helping me get things done. So I'm going to write that down. Backup archive.org collection. And we're going to save. Okay. Speaking of backing things up, in the unlikely event that romhacking.net goes down, I've been looking up ROM hacks for games that I own. Did you know that there's an extensive ROM hack collection for Ultima 3 Exodus for the NES? I think you've mentioned in the past that you own this one. I do not. I'm sorry. Essentially, this hack is an almost complete overhaul of the classic RPG, aimed at improving the game without compromising its original appeal and charm. Sprites, backgrounds, and UI elements have all been redrawn to use using later entries in the series as a reference. The interface has been improved with the limitations of the game engine, introducing quality of life changes that reduce some of the frustration of the original release. Very, very cool. I dig it. I watched Desm101's awesome Gradius Lore YouTube vid. Keep up the great work, Desm. Yeah, man, Desm kind of has the YouTube crown right now. He's putting out some good stuff for show. Question of the week. What are your top 3 games right now that you want to play and also own? By the way, Pico Interactive is having yet another sale on Steam. You can pick up your NES ROM for Nightshade for $2. Keep rolling retro. Hemrock. BBMNMW. Bring back Monday Night Morrowind. Awesome. So let's talk about Pico Interactive for a second. I went through their catalog, and I think I mentioned this before, but it turns out I do have some of their games already. The best one is the Rescue the Embassy mission for the NES. They have that out. It's called something else. It's called Hostage Rescue Mission or something. But that game, the original PC version, it is amongst the releases for the Pico Interactive, and I have enjoyed that one a great deal. I am interested in Nightshade. I will check that out. Yeah, that company is doing some pretty awesome stuff. Very cool email, man. Very cool. Good to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so before we switch gears and go from Hemrock's email over to the fail bag, let's take a quick second to thank the sponsors. This is a Patreon-sponsored program. Without these individuals, there's no way I could do this week after week after week. So to them, I offer early access to the show. As soon as it gets done, it goes up for the sponsors. And I also read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Hemrock, EmeraldRangers.com, Tecmoballs, Darabka, Konstantin Kelman, and Eric Controller. Thank you guys so much. I hope you're enjoying the party. And let's jam to some chiptunes. With that, let's go back to the catalog for this latest Battle of the Bits Summer 10 throwdown that's going on right now. This is still the entry phase, so songs are still being submitted. But I've been enjoying checking out some of the ones that have been posted so far. This one is called Bowser's Castle. It's from SyncX, SINC-X. It actually sounds nothing like anything related to Bowser's Castle, but it's also a really good song. It's a bit on the long side. I usually don't like to play things over the 5-minute mark here on TCR, but again, this is one where this is a composition. This guy actually plays, not just poking with a sequencer, though he kind of goes back and forth between styles in a few areas. Really, really solid track. Very, very good. So let's check it out. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Stick with us. More when we come back. like I said, it's a little bit longer than you'd typically hear on TCR, but really, really good track. Okay, so let's go over to YouTube and read some of the comments. Now, I want to push Mecha Menace to the front of the line on this week, and the reason why is because I got the biggest comment I've ever gotten from Mecha Menace, and probably ever gotten directly on YouTube, ever, on anything. And he's got some good stuff here, so let's see what we got. Actually, hang on one second. I want to check this. Is that still good? We good? I saw the needles drop. I wanted to make sure that I was still coming out okay. All right, scroll up here. What's on my shelf? Good old Mecha Menace. He writes, I'm going to nitpick and slash the crap out of this article. 19 minutes and 8 seconds. How can this article be written by a Sega fan? The author treats Sega's box like it was not a big thing. 20 minutes. A beige box and childish, those are insults, not facts. If the author was a fan, it'd be some remorse over time spent with Sega's box and possibly a feeling of betrayal. Maybe the author is playing into the stereotype to build a bleak picture of time. I enjoy all boxes now, and did then, minus the Xbox. But it sounds like this is a survivor of the Sega Nintendo 16-bit wars, believing Sega didn't try versus Nintendo. Sega marketed towards everyone. Sega built their platforms to appeal to all crowds, and any successful platform holder should. Do you remember the DC library? Being sports sponsorships in the 2K games, Counterculture with Crazy Taxi, Tony Hawk, and Jet Grind Radio, games which pushed the limit of what you thought was possible in a game like Shenmue. There was also Sonic, who was always evolving, who always evolves with the times to stay relevant, i.e. cool. Childish? Less than 10 years prior, Sega designed the Sonic character to appeal to the cool kids. Now he's childish. If anything, the author should have been freaked out that Sonic might be too different before the author picked up a controller and imported Dreamcast back in 1998. I bet the author enjoyed the fudge out of Mario Sunshine like I and most people did, or maybe the author trashed it when everyone else thought it was cool to do so. Maybe the author changed his mind now too, because it's apparently cool to like Sunshine. What the heck? 25 minutes in. The author can't do math. I'm telling you, the author is resentful of Sega for failing, or is a Nintendo fanboy. Going by U.S. launch dates, it's 10 years between the Sega Genesis and the Dreamcast. 25 minutes in. 1994, Sonic & Knuckles, plus 5 years. 1999, Sonic Adventure, going by U.S. launch. Adding an extra year makes it seem worse. It's a bunch of little lies like this that adds up to an opinion of all the more resentful when readers understand these facts. 23 minutes in, Dreamcast had 1.2 gigabyte discs. PS2 launched with a single layer DVD game at 4.7 gigabytes. Until late life games like God of War was released, which was a dual layer 8.5 gigabyte disc, which was not something gamers even knew about or discussed at the PS2 launch. That is an interesting point, because I'll tell you, man, I didn't know anything about disk capacity back then. All right, hang on a second. All right, I think we're good. Dreamcast had a very 25 minutes in. Dreamcast had a very successful launch in the U.S. Over a million sold in 2.5 months. The fastest selling machine to that point. Source Next Gen and Edge magazines, as quoted from Peter Moore himself. All this wrapped nicely in the History of Sega Dreamcast article on Sega Retro. 25 minutes in. Dreamcast launch titles were firstly available easily for purchase, as well as a well-rounded and many looked and played. I'm reading this terribly wrong, I know it. Dreamcast launch titles were firstly available easily for purchase, as well as well-rounded, and many looked and played impressively. Yeah, there we go. And now we get a list of the launch titles. And Hemrock, this is why I held off on that bullet point. Let's see what he has. Number 1, Power Stone. Number 2, Mortal Kombat Gold. Number 3, Soul Calibur. Number 4, Sonic Adventure. Number 5, Extendable. Number 6, Blue Stinger. 7, Trick Cycle. Number 8, Hydro Thunder. Number 9, Tokyo Extreme Racer. Number 10, Flag to Flag. Number 10, Monaco Grand Prix 2. Number 12, Pen Pen Triathlon. 13, TNN Hardcore Heat. 14, House of the Dead 2. 15, Air Force Delta. 16, Arrow Wings. Number 17, NFL 2K. Number 18, NFL Blitz 2000. Number 19, Ready to Rumble Boxing. Yeah, Hemrock, I didn't see any RPGs in that list, but I gotta admit, it covers a lot, quite a bit of ground. But let's get back to the comment. The PS2 launch was anemic and disappointing. I was there. All the lists I find now were written after the fact and included a launch window. Games released within the following months. Not all of those games were there. Here's what I remember. Fantavision, Summoner, DOA 2 Hardcore, Smuggler's Run, Ridge Racer 5, Orphan, Scion of Sorcery, Madden NFL 2001, and Evergrace. Quick break. I remember this as well. We did the midnight launch, and I think the game we walked on with was Madden NFL 2001. I remember thinking it was weird that my brother got a Madden game because we weren't much of a football game type people. But let's get back to the email or comment. I was so excited when I bought my PS2, yet it had no games for ages. All were pushed back. I had a lump of metal which could play DVD movies. That was neat, but I wanted to play games on it. Only a knowledge-dropping futuristic obelisk could promise. Yeah, I remember they were announcing games far, far in the future. I remember that being a thing. All right, let's see what we got. Almost done, actually. PS, 20 minutes and 51 seconds in. The PS2 was considered a black, mysterious obelisk, not sleek. The PS2 is a bland, mini PC tower, if anything. Sega's console is far better designed in terms of aesthetics. All right, I want to respond to that one real quick. Yes, that's true to an extent. People look back on that differently because the PS2 was the first one to start this trend of consoles that have the ability to stand upright. That's something that a lot of consoles do now. And that really started with the PS2. And it had a couple of things on the exterior that people liked. I remember one thing that kept coming up was the ability to turn the little PS2 logo to the right, rotate it so that you could stand it up. That actually was, I remember people digging that. But the Dreamcast was more in line with the way consoles were being designed at the time. The Dreamcast was a better looking console, whereas the PS2 ushered in a lot of the tropes that are used again and again and again in generations to come. But at the time, we didn't know that. So yeah, that's true. That's one of these things where it's like history is written by the victors, as they say. But we're almost done. Let's get back to this comment. 30 minutes and 57 seconds in. I was very aware of this time. I've written enough. If you read through all that commentary, need I fill you in on my boring life? I release you to other comments. Mecha Menace. Thanks very much for writing all that and for ripping our article writer a new one. So they say. Yeah. I find it interesting when I look at the list of the actual release games you have here. I wish Ridge Racer 5 was a better game. I think if Ridge Racer 5 was a better game, then I would look back on the PS2 launch as having a better library than it did. Because DOA 2 Hardcore is an awesome game. That stands up very, very well. And I think that's the only one of that bunch that really, really sticks with me is DOA 2 Hardcore. I didn't know Smuggler's Run was a launch game. I got that in the retro junk box, which was awesome now. I wish we were doing another retro junk box now because I'm trying to clean house. So I would load that thing down and send it out. Awesome, brother. Thanks for the rundown. Hope you're doing well. Hope your family is safe. Hope everything's good. So since that was the big we'll say counter article, let's go back to the entries from Battle of the Bits. We're gonna jam to another chiptune track, and then we'll return and read some more of the standardized regular comments. All right, give me a second here. Let's pick something out. All right, here's one. Cleater, and I'm almost hesitating to play this because Cleater makes it on every single one of these compilations. He's got a bunch up right now, so this one, just by the numbers, is very likely to end up on the final track list. But it is an awesome song. I mean, there's a reason why he's consistently showing up on in the winner's circle. This is Cleater with The Final Bit. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. More when we come back. All right, I've got to do one more. This was the one I was looking for at the top of the show, and I ended up playing something else instead. Good song, but this one is definitely worth checking out as well. This is Luigi64, and the name of the song is Super Garfield. This one is definitely Commodore 64 SID sound chip based. Stick with us. When we come back, we're going to do more Failbag. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Thank you for indulging me in an extra track. It's very short. It's not much, but man, is it a good one. I dig it. All right, let's get back to the Failbag. We did our two big-time summarizations of events and or, as it were. We'll call it our Dreamcast class. Let's see what else we got. Death Adder, good buddy Death Adder writes in. He says, I got a Dreamcast in late 2000, and I feel like by mid 2001, my video game store had used Dreamcast games for $5 and $6 a pop. This was during a period of my life when video games were a lot more casual for me than a couple years before. So I didn't mind the system was dying. I just loaded up on a bunch of cheap games and loved that. When I moved off on my own, also in 2003, like yourself, me and my roommates probably put a couple hundred hours into Worms Armageddon tournaments via the Dreamcast. I even made a Worms World title belt out of cardboard with Velcro straps towards the end of us living together. So when I think of the Dreamcast, usually Worms is the first game that comes to mind. A game that came out on PC back in 1931. As a Genesis owner over the Super Nintendo, I definitely wish Sega was still around. I believe Balzac is the resident Dreamcast superfan, so hopefully he chimes in on this episode. I'll tell you what, Death Adder, I didn't hear from Balzac, but I had an interesting thought while I was reading your comment. You talked about I don't know if this ties into your comment at all, but stick with me here. People love talking about the Dreamcast. We love thinking about the Dreamcast. And I think one of the reasons why people adore Sega and wish Sega came back was because Sega stopped making systems before we got into this period where people have to pay for extra for online games. To play online on your own system, you have to pay a monthly fee. It was before DLC really became an industry standard. It was the Sega died a hero as opposed to living long enough to become a villain, as opposed to, so they say. I would love to see a system like that come back. I don't care who makes it. Make an old school system again. Make the games expensive, that's fine, but give us the whole game and don't charge us to play it online. I'm in. Make it happen. More memories. He goes on. As for my very first exposure, I remember playing Sonic Adventure at Toys R Us and being like, well, this seems stupid. Sorry, Balzac. I don't think I ever played it on the console, but I hated the arcade game Crazy Taxi. Really?
Let's go make some crazy money.
It's right up there with Gran Turismo for games I'd rather lick windows than play. Besides Worms, I had maybe 15 games for it. I had a lot of fun playing Gauntlet Legends. Yes, good game. Spider-Man and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on it. The Spider-Man copy, I bought a burnt copy of this kit at school. I remember one of the last sleepovers I did as an older teen. It was with my 6'6" stoner friend. We smoked cigarettes, chugged grape soda, and played Ready to Rumble boxing right before my first viewing of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Don't ask me why, but that memory sticks out. Unlike the Sega Genesis, where 95% of the people I knew had one in my town, I don't remember any of my friends owning the Dreamcast. I think most of the people held out for Sony's new DVD player. Yeah, thanks for killing Sega, Sony, you jerk faces. Yeah, I just want to point out Gauntlet Legends was an incredibly underrated game. We had Gauntlet Legends on the PS1, and it was really good. Yeah, I don't know. NG had a Dreamcast, but nobody else had one. No, that's not true. I knew one other guy who had one. I knew a kid named Miguel. Miguel had a Dreamcast. But I stopped hanging out with him around that time, so I only really saw it running in his house one time. Good to hear from you, brother. Hope you're doing well. Hold on a second. Alright, where were we? Yes, Death Adder. Just in case the archive goes down, it's times like these I wish Tiger Claw Radio didn't have 7,000 episodes. Lol, maybe we can work out some sort of Google torrent type gimmick down the road. Yeah, that sounds good. As long as we can do a torrent would be a good solution, actually. Mecha Menace responds, number 1, get the archive downloader extension from Chrome. 2, go to the user account page like archive.org/details/DeathAdderSuperShow. 3, click the archive downloader icon on your toolbar. If hidden, click the puzzle piece icon. Then click the archive downloader from the drop-down list. 4, a list will generate. Check the MP3 box, select download, boom, all downloaded. Yes, thank you, Mecha Menace. Thumbs up. You got a heart. I will do that. Death Adder responds, I pride myself on my laptop having only Firefox and Microsoft Edge, but I'll install Evil on my computer for this. Thanks, Mecha. Awesome. After that was the Mecha Menace Super Symposium on how the author from last week was a dink. So we read that one already. I feel like we can move along down the line there, buddy. Then we come to Alex Swingle. Swingle, good to hear from you again. I wanted to say that before I read your comment. That way you'd have ample time to rip into me. 21 minutes in, never in the history of ever did I hear anybody like those PS2 ads. I thought both the Dreamcast and the PS2 had terrible marketing. Only reason my brother Andy bought the PS2 was to play DVDs and to play the latest NCAA football game. Yeah. Wow, I haven't heard of NCAA football games in a long time. Last time I remember anybody talking about an NCAA football game was the PS1. Back when they would have like Game Breaker, NCAA Game Breaker. Do you guys remember that? That was one of the long box games, I believe. I remember seeing NCAA Game Breaker for the PS1 on sale for keepsies at Blockbuster Video for 99 cents. It was like they had it for rent and nobody wanted to rent it. I almost bought it too. I can't remember why I didn't. To this day, I wouldn't mind playing it. But let's get back to the comment. The PS2 actually had a mediocre library during the Dreamcast's life. It was the fact that the CD versus the DVD format limited developers to so much that a bunch of them dumped the Dreamcast before they could even see which system could be successful. I mean, there were less than a dozen Blue Disc games for the PS2 that are worth picking up today. The rest were sport titles that the Dreamcast was on par with. I vividly remember seeing the PS2 rentals at Hollywood Video when the PS2 came out, and I declared I was not getting a PS2 anytime soon. Time to play Might and Magic Quest for the Dragon Staff, said nobody. Yes. More light shined on the fact that the PS2 had a bit of a rocky start. Oh, but you guys remember right around that time, didn't Saddam Hussein buy 200 PS2s so he could try and start a space program with them somehow? Wasn't that a thing? That's a real thing. Look it up. I swear. I don't remember the details. I don't even remember if it was Saddam Hussein, but I remember there was some sort of Middle Eastern group that bought a bunch of PS2s to try and launch a space program. All right. That's from Swingle. What do we have here? We got Desm, and we got Sendu. Okay, and then we got other stuff. Okay, Desm writes, I remember the Dreamcast released well. Soul Calibur, Sonic Adventure, Crazy Taxi. We were very impressed. It seems like it was more than an arcade machine. I didn't get one right away, but I always really liked it. Edit. Dude, lots of great points you bring up in the video. Sega fans are being replicated by Sega Dreamcast Legacy. Great job, man. Also, really appreciate the shout out too. You rock. Thanks, man. That gets a thumbs up and a heart for Desm. That's the combo. Yes, Soul Calibur, Sonic Adventure, and Crazy Taxi is quite a trio of games. The one odd man out being Sonic Adventure. I know everybody usually speaks very, very well of Sonic Adventure. I wasn't as familiar with it as most people. But Soul Calibur, oh, what a game. That's a series that was awesome from the very, very beginning. And Crazy Taxi is also a piece of software.
Let's go get some crazy money.
I don't care if the game's good or not or whatever. I just like saying that. It's funny. All right, then we go to Light Studios. Good old Sendu from EmeraldRangers.com. The Dreamcast launch was one of my fondest memories as a child. I remember playing in the stores on display as long as I could and loving it. I had 3 brothers at the time, and we all desperately pulled together to get a Dreamcast and Sonic Adventure 1. I'll never forget those Dreamcast magazines that always provided demo discs. We couldn't afford many games, and we lost a lot of our old ones, but my brothers and I lived for those demo discs. I would argue that Sonic Adventure 2 and Shenmue 1 and 2 proved that the Dreamcast could potentially put graphics out on par with some PS2 games. We will never know its full potential. And that there, Sendu, that last sentence, I think is the real tragedy of the Dreamcast, is that we won't know. We won't know, and we'll never know the true potential of the VMU and its games. Because when I look back on the Dreamcast, that is my favorite part that was never reproduced in video gaming ever, was the VMU. Now I don't want it to be reproduced. Now I feel like if we got a VMU, it would go bad. It would be awful. Instead of a VMU, it would be like something for your phone. And it would just be microtransactions all over the place. I can't imagine a console having a mobile tie-in like that with absolutely zero additional funding required. And then he goes on, with that thumbnail, I thought you'd bring up the rumored... Excuse me. Sorry. I thought you'd bring up the rumored new Sega system. I will go to Tiger Fest. How interesting it will be to see each other in person. Yeah, I don't know anything about the rumored new Sega system, to be perfectly honest with you, Sendu. I know that's a thing people have been talking about for years and years and years and years, long before whatever the current rumor is got started. So I didn't really pay much attention, I guess. Tiger Fest. Yes, I actually sat down and had a discussion with my wife about logistics revolving around Tiger Fest. And it sounds like something we can really make happen. Again, this is a couple of years down the road, once it's safe to emerge from our shells again, and this whole COVID thing has come and gone. But it sure is nice to set something up to look forward to for when that happens. So yeah, that's a thing. That is a thing. I like Death Adder's idea of making a championship belt. Win a game we all like, and then have a battle or something for who gets the Tiger Fest championship belt. Sendu, hope you're doing well, brother. Death Adder, coming back to this post a couple days later to ask about Vintage Video Game Geek. I recently heard he deleted his YouTube, and I'm assuming Twitter. You and him seemed to be as thick as thieves a couple of years ago, so maybe you could shine some light on what happened. Yeah, let's talk about Vintage Video Game Geek. I don't really know what happened. It's been, quite a few years since I talked to him with any regularity. I know that he was shadow banned on Twitter, for a long time. So he stopped using Twitter and started using. He stopped using his normal Twitter account and started using the account for his podcast that he did with NES Complex. And that was just what he used on Twitter. So, I don't know. Excuse me. I have to look up to see if his podcast stuff is still around, because he did the last couple of years. That's really what he's been focusing on is the podcast that he did with NES Complex. That's really been where he's been surviving. After I read your comment, I looked it up and I was shocked to see all the old stuff was gone. And I reached out to him. I sent him an email, and unfortunately, I haven't heard back from him. We'll see what happens. But yeah, he was always way more successful than me, so it's kind of sad to see his stuff disappear. Especially since one of his videos was he did. This is like a really, really old video of his. He had a shout out to Mr. Bughorn, who was like a video game vlogger from when I first started, and Mr. Bughorn actually passed away. And his shout out to Mr. Bughorn was the only remaining footage of Mr. Bughorn. And now it's gone because he apparently deleted his channel. And that kind of sucks. But it is what it is. It's his choice. And I'm not going to pass any judgment. I have no idea what his life is like. If he tells me anything, if he reaches out to me and tells me anything I can share, I'd be happy to pass it along. But yeah, it sucks. It's sad to see it go. I wanted to do a podcast with him for a lot of years. I was ready to fold up TCR at one point so that I could launch a new project with him. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good guy. I hope he makes a comeback at some point. I think that's it. Oh yeah, and we had a couple. Today I put out a video about my net label Community Modular and Electronic, and I got a couple comments on that. Painted Blonde writes, "Your enthusiasm is super inspiring, man. Thanks for the shout out and good luck with this. I think it's going to be awesome." Thanks, man. And Desm101 writes, "What an awesome idea. I like the idea of lots of music being available and accessible for people to enjoy freely without content ID and all that." Yeah, man, me too. And that's one of the things I really found inspiring about DMT Tapes FL, because that's the way that place is. 800 plus releases, It's all free. You can check it out. It's all free. It's all, you can use it in your YouTube videos or whatever. That's what I wanted to do. Something where it's like just those of us who are putting stuff out, checking each other out. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I feel like at this point it's already been a success because I was able to meet those 3 people and put releases out for them. So, it's been fun. It's been really fun. That puts us, where are we at? We're 55 minutes in. We're almost at an hour, but I kind of want to do one more track. I've got one more chiptune. What do you think? We'll play one more chiptune and then we'll jump out for the week. This is the name of the track is Voices in My Head, and it's from Quiet. This is another track from Battle of the Bits. It's a submission for the Summer Chip 10 compilation. Stick with us. We'll be back in just a minute. And that's it, boys and girls, for another week of Tiger Claw Radio. Next week, we're going to have to find something else to talk about now that we can put this Dreamcast stuff behind us, at least for now. But I'll tell you one thing. Since I'm wrapping up, I want to play Crazy Taxi again. Yeah. Crazy Taxi, and we didn't talk nearly enough about Space Channel 5. What an awesome game Space Channel 5 is. I will fight you, and that's the truth. Whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're into this week, I hope it's working well for you. Keep at it. Don't give up. Keep getting out of bed in the morning, especially now when we're having trouble finding safe ways to go outside. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. I'll see you next week.